DeSanto put the hammer down on Seth Gross. Now, if you doubted that Austin DeSanto deserved to be what was the number 2 wrestler and now is the number 1 wrestler, well, DeSanto just showed you up, and he loves to show people up. Now, this was huge for DeSanto. Not only for DeSanto, but also for Iowa as a team. I'm going to talk about some big wins that DeSanto's had over the last just 5 years. It was some incredible wins, putting up one of the best resumes out of any college wrestler, honestly. And then I'm going to talk about why this is so big for DeSanto and Iowa. Now, if you missed the match, DeSanto beat Seth Gross 6-2 in the Iowa versus Wisconsin duel. Of course, Wisconsin ended up losing that duel 32-3. Iowa just really put the hammer down on Wisconsin, which was very, very big. Now, DeSanto just hit a couple of his nice kind of firemen, just tied up with Gross, hit a couple of nice firemen, got a couple of takedowns, and rode him out a couple of the periods, which is pretty nice. One of the things that I thought was pretty impressive that I like seeing from DeSanto is he's very self-aware on the mat. He knows where he is, especially in situations where Seth Gross hits a stand-up, he's coming up, he's trying to get out from DeSanto, and instead of just straight up letting him go, which a lot of guys do, of course, he's trying to hit those mat returns, which is very, very nice. He's had some nice mat returns, taking Gross down right to his stomach. But whenever he is up and he knows that he may not be able to return him to the mat, he sees maybe he can get him out of bounds a little bit. He sees that he's actually going to count. What I'm assuming, he's kind of counting in his head, okay, I only have so much time, I only have 10 seconds, or what I believe it's 10 seconds, in order to, before it's hit with stalling, that I can keep him up there. So I'm going to get a couple more riding time points, get some more riding time, and get that on the board. So I'm going to let him go, and then let him go at the last second. He's done that a couple times, which I find very, very impressive. Now, what else is great for DeSanto is he kept composed. We saw a little bit about him coming out, I believe it was last week, and whenever he was getting a little bit excitable, but he kept composed this week. Now, he was ridden out in the third period, so that's obviously something he's going to work out in the future. Now, as far as some of the big wins that Austin DeSantos had over the last 5 years. First of all, starting out in 2016, he beat Spencer Lee in his high school and his senior season. Now, this was a very, very, very different time for DeSanto and Lee. Of course, they were going to separate high schools in Pennsylvania. Now, DeSanto, if you don't know the story, he was tagged actually by Spencer Lee in the state finals the year before that. So these guys had wrestled before that, but DeSanto just trained extremely hard, knew what he had to work on, and was just all in, all focused on what he had to do. And he ended up beating Spencer Lee in what was the craziest match one of the craziest matches I've seen in my life. Now, Spencer Lee was hurt, but still, it's a very impressive feat coming back from that tech fall the year before. Now, a couple of guys coming into his freshman season that DeSanto beat and showed that he's a big, big name wrestler is Stefan Micic. That was the first match. Now, we'll get to a little bit of, he had some wins and losses against these guys. Of course, he beat Stefan Micic. He beat Jack Mueller that year, who, of course, is a powerhouse guy, now at 125. DeSanto, of course, at 133 pounds. And he also beat Dom Fories. Dom Fories of Pitt was a very big match for him. Now, DeSanto, while he did have early season wins to Micic, he ended up losing to him at the national tournament, of course, in the infamous Kimura move, which was, a little bit controversial. And then Mueller is the guy who he lost to, and then he ended up beating. The following year, last year, he beat Roman Bravo Young. He beat him twice, actually. He wrestled Nick Suriano, who he beat early in the season and ended up losing to at Nationals. Lezak was a guy he went back and forth with all year, as well as Austin Gomez is a guy he lost to and then ended up beating. And this year, he's starting out strong with a win against Seth Gross. And we're just going to see him rolling, but why is this win so big for DeSanto? Well, first of all, it shows that the first reason is that Austin DeSanto in Iowa, they control the lightweights now. This is huge. We knew that Iowa had dominant lightweights, but now we know that they are in full control. Of course, Spencer Lee being the number one guy at 125, DeSanto being number one guy at 133 is huge. The Hawkeyes have actually, all their guys are in the top 10, but now these two guys being number one is huge. And there's an argument that, going a little bit up, couple of the other guys could also become number ones before postseason comes around, and obviously after. Now, of course, you also have Murin at 141, who's holding his ground as the number 8 ranked heavyweight. This is so big because it's just massive points for the team race as far as nationals come around, but it also shows that it's big for dual meets. If they start at 125, it gets the dual meets rolling, and it's huge. The second reason that this is big for DeSanto is it's a big confidence boost. I mean, let's be honest. It's a big confidence boost to beat the number 1 ranked guy in the country. Whether you believe in ranks or don't believe in ranks, it's pretty big to beat Seth Gross, who just showed his dominance at the international tournament a couple weeks ago, at a freestyle tournament, and just beating these top ranked guys. And then DeSantos just comes out here and sticks it to Seth Gross. Now, I don't think that DeSantos is necessarily lacking any confidence, but I think that this is big for him. Now, as far as the season so far, that is his biggest win, obviously, but he has not wrestled Austin Gomez, who against ISU a couple weeks ago. They did not wrestle. His next big matches are coming up in Midland, so he'll have some tough matches there, absolutely, some ranked guys he'll run into. But his biggest match probably coming up is against Penn State, and that's not until January, but he'll be facing number 3 Roman Bravo Young, and that's going to show where he is as far as the rankings go. I think he's going to stay on top, but that could be very interesting to see. And then the third reason that this is so big is because it's going to give him better seeding towards the end of the year. Now, of course, this is if DeSanto wins out the rest of the regular season, doesn't post any losses, which is entirely possible. It is entirely possible. But it will give him better seeding at Big Tens, which means he'll have a little bit easier path to the finals. Not an easy path. No path to the finals at Big Tens is easy. However, a little bit easier. He'll probably end up having who is the number 9 ranked wrestler right now, in Travis Petrosky of Illinois. He'll probably end up having him on the same side, while Seth Gross and Roman Bravo Young battle it out on the other side. Of course, that's going by what the rankings are right now.